Let's go ahead and bring in political analyst Steve Chaggaris. Steve, what are you expecting to hear from Trump in this speech?
Two things. I talked to one of his advisors, in fact, Jason Miller, who helped write the speech, and he said they're going to focus on two things. One, they're going to talk about how this is the worst month ever for the beginning of a presidency. They're going to hammer Joe Biden on immigration, on foreign policy, and they're basically going to, he's basically going to say that all the things that I warned you about during the campaign are all coming true. That's going to be one lane that he's going to go down with his speech. The other is obviously staking his claim to the Republican Party and make the argument that this is the party not only of Trump, but really the party of Make America Great Again, America First, all the themes that he pushed as president. And he's going to talk about how they're going to try to use that philosophy moving forward. The written script is not going to look back very much. It's going to look forward. We'll see how much Donald Trump actually deviates from his script.
There is no Republican leader out there really ready to challenge him. Mitch McConnell, we spoke about him before. He didn't vote to find Donald Trump guilty in the impeachment trial, but then said he's all but guilty and didn't vote for him because of a technicality. And then another about-face just came out and said he would support him if he was the nominee for 2024. What is his game?
Well, Republicans find themselves in a very odd situation. Traditionally, when a presidential candidate loses, you don't hear much from them moving forward. Usually the party is ready to move ahead without that person and try to turn the page. And I think Mitch McConnell is looking at 2022 in the midterms, and he saw, or at least he came to the conclusion, that part of the reason why they lost the majority of the Senate was because of Donald Trump. Donald Trump's behavior, his presidency, and the fact that candidates just really didn't know how to deal with this idea that Donald Trump overall is unpopular, but within the Republican Party does still have a lot of popularity. So McConnell was making a bet that maybe the party's ready to turn the page. I think what we're seeing today is that a significant chunk of Republicans are not ready to turn the page. They are putting their faith behind a guy who not only lost the presidency, but helped lose the Senate, and they lost the House a couple of years ago. It's a strange situation Republicans find themselves in. There's no real precedent in modern political history for it, but that's the situation they find themselves in, and you see people like Mitch McConnell trying to figure this out about how to move forward.
This is indeed a Republican Party tug of war. Who would have thought that state GOPs would be censuring McCain, Cheney? These are real Republican figures that are now essentially no longer welcome in the mainstream Republican Party.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And what winds up happening is when when a party does elect a president, then it sort of trickles down to the state party level, and they are very loyal to that president. Even though Trump lost, these state party folks are still very, very loyal to him. And at the end of the day, look, what Donald Trump brought to this party were voters who really have resentment toward establishment figures, toward big tech, toward the mainstream media, toward cancel culture. You're hearing a lot of that at this CPAC. And that is at the grassroots level of the Republican Party right now. And so any candidate or any elected official that is representative of any of those things, especially the establishment, there's a lot of backlash that they're receiving from folks at the state level. And it's just really going to be interesting to see how this all plays out over the next couple of years.
The Economist magazine, a conservative publication by most measures, says that state-level efforts to restrict voting have increased thanks to a big push at the state level by Republicans. Nearly 7 times as many proposals in state legislators to restrict voting rights as there were just 1 year ago. What does that tell you about Republican strategy going forward?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I think one of the things that Trump's advisors want him to touch on today, not grievances about the election and losing the election, but to point to how the election was administered and to point to the large number of absentee ballots and suggest that there was some foul play involving that. And that's what you're seeing Republicans around the country saying now. They're saying all these absentee ballots because of the pandemic. What the Democrats are trying to do is make that permanent. And they're trying to do it in a way where there's not a lot of checks and balances on how those absentee ballots are filled out and returned. And so they're making these, they're proposing these laws in which, for instance, in Georgia, saying that, okay, fine, you want to keep absentee ballots at the number that we had in 2020, then fine, you need to send a photocopy of your ID. That's going to be a prerequisite in terms of returning these ballots. And, you know, Democrats and others are saying, well, wait a minute, you're putting roadblocks into what was an easy process and resulted in record turnout for a presidential year. And so now there's this tug of war. Republicans, I think, are going to basically say, look, this is an opportunity for us to put the voter ID restrictions that we want, the a fewer number of days for early voting. These are things that Republicans are pushing, and now they're looking at 2020's result and saying we are now justified to push these laws forward, and you're seeing them do that right now.